Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Fantasy Football Consistency Show. It's Thursday night. You know what that means. We're going to review last week, week 3. We're going to preview week 4. James Knight's here. I'm here, and you're going to be coming up next. And here we are, week 3 review, week 4 preview. James, welcome back to the show. Always good to have you here, brother. Let's get rolling into the quarterback position. We have 4 perfectly consistent quarterbacks. That's it. After week 3. All right, we have one that was 2 for 2, but he got hurt, Jaden Daniels. And we got a couple 1-for-1s. But anyway, the 3 for 3s. Lamar Jackson? Oh, yeah, we all expected that. Baker Mayfield? Yeah, I think we would have expected that. I mean, he was certainly one of the top 5 last year in consistency. So we loved Baker. So all those who drafted him, you're welcome. But the other two, Caleb Williams, 3rd in total points. Drake May, 5th in total points. Not sure if that's going to continue for the both of them, but by God, they're there, and they're in the top 5 in scoring. James, surprises? Were you a fan of Caleb or Drake going into this year as a solid backup, let alone a starter on your teams?
We kind of touched on this before, and I jumped on the rookie quarterbacks from last year kind of early. I like Bo Nix a lot. I like Caleb Williams, and I like Drake May. The one thing that stands out to me about all of them is that designed rushing, where they get 15% or more designed rushes on their team. So they have that really good fantasy floor. And like you said, that's going to help them get into clutch games, do the kind of stuff that they're doing. And Caleb Williams, I mean, as much as we've seen some mistakes and it's really easy to nitpick his game, he's putting up points and he's also running for close to 40 some plus yards per game. And I think Drake May's almost in the same boat. Like I said, both of them are running consistently doing things. And if their arm talent gets a little better, the receiving rooms get a little better around them, start picking up some stuff, then I think we might see them consistently stay in this ranking.
It's always a thing. Very, very rarely do we have pocket quarterbacks putting up good numbers. Baker may be close, but he does get out there and move around. I mean, he's not frozen in the backfield. He's not a design run guy, I'm sure, but definitely putting it up there with his arms and the wide receiver core, even though that keeps getting smaller and smaller by the week. Yeah. Maybe Godwin will be back this week. They're not sure. Ibuka was banged up, but then went out and did 6 for 80 yards or whatever he did. So, it's hard to trust. But, the 2 for 3, we have Josh Allen, Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts, Geno Smith with a big week last week. But let's go down a little bit, down to there's only one 0 for 3 that's basically, well, I shouldn't say that. There's 2 full-time starters. One is Joe Flacco, which I think I'm kind of surprised he's 0 for 3. I thought he would do a little bit better, but they've been playing some pretty tough defenses too. CJ Stroud is 0 for 3. I think he could bounce back. He's got a nice matchup this week, I think against Jacksonville. But the 1 for 3s, Bo Nix, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Jones, Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Pat Mahomes, Justin Herbert, who is getting MVP credentials thrown at him. And he's 1 for 3 in consistency, 6 in total points. So the reason I bring that up is somebody offered me, because I lost Burrow in the Kings Classic, and I've been kind of playing with whoever's hot of the week. So I had Aaron Rodgers one week, and he did okay for me. And I'm 3-0, even with that. But somebody offered me Justin Herbert for like Kyren Williams. And I wrote back and I go, oh, no, I'm sorry. It was Ibuka. So he writes, trade me, here's my trade offer. And I wrote back, I go, you're giving me a 33% consistent quarterback for a 100% consistent wide receiver. It ain't happening. Not doing it. But I think that's what this, we always said this is what the system's about, is to bring out the truth. Justin Herbert had a very big game, and has been, I think when he's not earning a clutch game, which is clutch factors about 20 points, he's probably getting 18, 19, maybe 17, but it's still not good enough. And, it's hard. But, a couple years ago, Lamar Jackson, his MVP year, 63% consistent. But he did the job. He won games and got him pretty far. But these quarterbacks, what are you doing in your leagues? Do you have top guys like, I drafted Jaden Daniels because I'm like, oh, okay, I have some love for this guy. I think he's got potential. Now he's going to miss maybe a second game. It's just ugly. I mean, how are you manipulating? How are you maneuvering through the quarterback world at this point?
And it's been tough, but I did, like I said, I had that strategy where I was really trying to hit one of those three guys in May, Caleb Williams or Bo Nix. Some of the leagues, like we're looking at here, we're seeing Bo Nix 1 out of 3, starting slow like he did last year. He started really slow. I saw a thing about him that showed that he was, I think it was 27% of his passes were 9 yards or less from yardage that he was getting, which looks a lot like last year before they took the training wheels off. So I've still got hope there. Fortunately, in those leagues, I did back him up and drafted extremely late, like my last picks, and got Daniel Jones. So it's weird because I feel like the last couple of weeks I've been starting Daniel Jones, waiting for Bo Nix to kind of break out, and it's worked out. So, but you pointed out something perfect here. I mean, you look at the MVP talk for Herbert. Mahomes is another one of those guys you hear, but this is kind of this 1 for 3 list and the 0 for 3 as you get down here. It's kind of that list of, like you said, the pocket passers, that if they're not getting 2 or 3 touchdowns thrown a week, then they're going to fall outside of that consistency. And, but when they have that big week, 3, 4 touchdowns, everybody's talking about them for MVP, So they just don't have that same floor here. So, navigating through some of these guys, and some of them, it doesn't look like the situation's going to get much better. Dak Prescott's losing CeeDee Lamb here. So, I mean, that's going to be tough sledding for him without Lamb, I think. We know the thing about Jared Goff. Is he at home? Is he away? Is he in a dome? Is he outside? There's some scary there. And, not to mention the coach turnover, but I really am. I'm kind of surprised with as much as the Chargers have been throwing it. I'm kind of surprised to see Herbert at a 1 for 3. But like you said, I think that's because he's been right there under that cutoff line. So in points overall, navigating through these guys, these are probably the guys that if you're starting them and doing stuff, you're probably wanting to look up at some of these other guys, maybe make a trade, try to find somebody a little more consistent in your league, a little better floor, if you will, to get into that consistency tier.
Yeah, this is the time where you take a Patrick Mahomes and you go find the guy that's got, Baker, Drake May. I'm not sure I feel 100% confident with Caleb Williams yet, but because Drake May seems to run and they're in a division where they're playing the Jets twice, the Dolphins twice, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Go trade for trade Mahomes for a Drake May and a solid depth, whether it's your second running back, your third receiver, a flex. Build depth, and they're going to look at the numbers and go, oh, well, Drake May, is fifth or sixth, but either way, that seems like a no-brainer for those who don't understand the consistency concept. Right now, Herbert is 6th, Mahomes is 8th, Goff is 9, and they're 33% consistent. Baker Mayfield is 10th. So again, maybe that's the trade you make, but this is the time to make those moves. I don't care if you're 3-0 or 0-3. This is the time to make those moves for the rest of the season because injuries are going to keep coming. And so you've got to be, the more depth, especially if it's a big league like a 14 team or, a 12 team with a very deep bench. Depth is so important because those bye weeks are coming soon. I think they start week 5.
They start week 5. Yeah, next week. I was going to say the same thing. When those bye weeks hit you, it tends to devastate teams more than people think. When you don't have the depth. Yeah.
I mean, week 5 there's 4 teams off. Week 6 there's 2. Week 7 there's 2. But then week 8 there's 6. And so luckily, and that's the biggest week. After that, it just goes 4, 4, 2, 4, 4. But that week 8 is brutal. So, figure out the best case scenario for that. But that's kind of stuff we're here to say. All right, let's move on to the running back position. Um, we'll talk about this more, but right now there are more perfectly consistent running backs than wide receivers. I mean,
Mhm.
there are a lot of running backs, and a lot of them that will surprise you. I will go through the surprises because we know who the good ones are: Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey, etc. But Javonte Williams, seventh, 100%. Travis Etienne, ninth, 100%. J.K. Dobbins, 12th, 100%, which also could be the reason why Bo Nix doesn't have to throw a lot. Because between Dobbins and R.J. Harvey, that's a heck of a duo. Jalen Warren, 15th. Uh, DeAndre Swift, 23rd. All 3 for 3 in consistency. Judkins, who of course missed the first game, is 2 for 2 since he's come back, so he's on a roll too. But the studs are up there. There's a few who are not. Not many that are really too far down outside of probably Chase Brown and Gente. Those are your guys that might have been drafted a little bit higher and, aren't coming through for you. But, Chase Brown, that's the lack of Joe Burrow. Offensive line still sucks, but lack of Joe Burrow certainly makes a big difference. But of that group, especially the top group, who's ones up there that surprise you maybe a little bit more than others? And are there any that are down below that surprise you for not being as consistent as we thought they would be?
Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of stick in the group up there at the top. The two guys that surprised me the most are DeAndre Swift and Quinshon Judkins that are together for different reasons. Swift, I think everybody talked about it all offseason that he was possibly going to lose the job or do something. They weren't sure how good the Bears were going to be. Somebody was going to eat into carries and do that stuff. And, you look back on when he was with the Lions and had Ben Johnson there, his first 2 games that year, he was RB1 both weeks before he got
Mm-hmm.
hurt and ended up with an ankle sprain and then had a hamstring pull. And, just the wheels fell off the bus. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people were surprised about that. And like I said, I was kind of in on the Caleb Williams thing, and I thought Ben Johnson was going to get them right. And Roshan Johnson is there. They drafted Kyle Monaga, and none of that really sounded like anybody that was going to take DeAndre Swift's job. I
All
think
right.
if he's healthy, I think he's going to surprise people and probably stay in the consistent range there. And like I said, it's the Bears. They're starting to put up points, starting to do stuff with that Ben Johnson offense. And I think they're at Las Vegas this week against the Raiders. So they tend, I
Yes.
believe that's the game this week for them. So it's not going to be too tough of a matchup. And then Judkins again, just the craziness that he was out and that people weren't sure if he was going to play or when he was going to come
Right.
back. And then he was supposed to get eased in week 2 and he just took the job. I think you touched on that with Knicks maybe not having consistency games. The last 2 weeks, all of a sudden the Cleveland running game is back and maybe
Yeah.
Flacco's not having to throw it near as much, tighter
Right.
games, defense is showing up. I think that's kind of what they wanted to establish. And Judkins right now, when you're looking at it, other rookie running backs are letting people down. And if you took a stab at Judkins, you're probably feeling pretty good about it. So
Yeah, no, without question. Now, this week will be interesting. They're playing in Detroit, so
yeah,
in the dome, where the Lions usually do very well, but we'll see how well it holds up. They got Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery there. That's a lot of talent to hold back. Like Green Bay didn't, I mean, it surprised me that the Browns won, no question. But it didn't surprise me that the defense did well because one, the Packers' pass game is not that great. They've got a lot of garbage, and Josh Jacobs was not 100%, and Brown's run defense have been brutal to run against. So that doesn't surprise me. Now you're going against a team. And of course they were playing in Cleveland, which helped a lot. Now you're going into Detroit with all of that talent you have to cover. It's not just one running back or one receiver. It's a myriad of people. So, when Jameer Gibbs gets tired, they put Montgomery in and he ran for 150 yards last week. So there's a lot of
oh
issues
yeah,
there that the Browns have to stop. Now, if they do it, then the defense is real. There's no question, but holding back, I guess they'll have to take look at the game that the Packers had against the Lions when they slowed them down a lot, but that was in Green Bay. So we'll see how that all plays out this week. I'm not benching Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery for any reason, but certainly the running game on the other side, should do pretty well because the Lions, they're not bad against the run. They're ninth in giving up total points. So it should be I'm not sure it'll be a 13-10 game. Let's just put it that way. But like I said, we look down the bottom. Chase Brown is troubling some people. I get it. Zach Charbonnet has missed a couple games. He should be back tonight. And like you said, a lot of these kids are coming up now. Marion Hampton, R.J. Harvey, Trey Benson will be playing tonight as the starter with James Conner out for the year. So there's a lot of young players that are going to try to make an impact. We'll see how consistent they are. Before we move on, any last things on the running backs you want to mention before we run off here into the wide receiver group?
One of my favorite running back plays this week, is going to play Sunday morning in Dublin. It's going to be Jordan Mason for the Vikings. Aaron Jones out, I imagine, and it's almost always a sloppy game when it's international, and it seems like the running backs go off. So I wouldn't be shocked as long as he stays healthy, knock on wood with him. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a really big game Sunday morning against the Steelers.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. It's usually the running backs that do pretty well. Time changes, all that kind of happy stuff. But could be and usually the weather doesn't cooperate. And this one's in Ireland, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't rain in Ireland like Seattle. Doesn't rain every day?
I feel like it does. Absolutely, yeah. So,
and I'm not going to say anything. So, shh. But Seattle's not supposed to rain this weekend.
Oh,
So sadly, there was no football game to watch, but there is a baseball game we're going to, and a football game. But anyway, all right, let's go to the wide receiver positions. Puka Nacua out to first place here in total points, 100% consistent. As I mentioned before, there are, 3, 6, somewhere around 6, 9, maybe 10 total running or wide receivers here. Some surprises. Roma Dunze, third in total points, perfectly consistent. JSN, I knew he would be top 12, but top 4 is surprising to me. But it's all they have. And he gets open. I mean, he's just a good receiver. Ibuka, 10th in total points, 100% consistent. Chris Olave is 22nd in total points, but still 100% consistent. So you see the trend there. 3 Ohio State wide receivers. Just saying. Justin Jefferson, 25th in total points, which is the big surprise. 100% consistent, sure, but the clutch factor is only 10. So, not pulling the weight. Also, DK Metcalf, 30th in total points, 3 for 3. And Mike Evans, 33rd in total points, 3 for 3. So, again, if you're, scoring 11 points a week, well, that's where Mike Evans has 34, Metcalf has 35, CeeDee Lamb has 38, as well as Jefferson's 38 with 3 games. CeeDee Lamb missed a game. But they are just barely squeaking by each week at, 11, 12 points to get where they're at. I think the wide receivers is the group that I think we're a little bit more disappointed in, where some of the big names are down below, some due to injuries, some just due to not consistent play on behalf of the team, not necessarily the team's doing bad, hence Philadelphia Eagles. But they finally had Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown earn a clutch game, but that's their first one of the year. So they're at 33%, which is also where DJ Moore is, Marvin Harrison, Romeo Dobbs, Terry McLaurin, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins, Jerry Jeudy, a lot of pretty solid names down there. Of course, Jamar Chase is also 1 for 3 as well. There's some disappointments down there for sure. James, let's talk about the top group. I think the one that surprises me the most is Roma Dunze. Like, I knew he was going to break out, but they're literally just not getting the ball to DJ Moore. So obviously this is that time where that second receiver, because the number one receiver is getting the number one cornerback, he is exceeding expectations. It doesn't look like he's going to slow down anytime soon.
It does not. And like I said, that whole Bears offense looks different with Ben Johnson. Like I said, Caleb,
Sure.
we saw him on their consistency. DeAndre Swift is now a consistent option. It's like the offense is kind of humming there. And when they let Keenan Allen walk last year and move away, he had eaten up 140 targets in Chicago. And,
Right.
it felt natural that Adunze would have to step up and be able to do something. I was in on
Mhm.
DJ Moore. I heard the stuff, where they were playing him a little bit of running back, getting him some extra touches. That's been okay. But I mean, if you drafted him, you're probably, that's all right. But like you said, Roma Dunze is 3 for 3. He gets the Las Vegas Raiders this week, which give up the third most points to fantasy wide receivers. So,
Mhm.
and Adunze is averaging 9 targets a game. He's got 27 targets through 3 weeks. So I think the over under is right at 48, 47 and a half, 48 for this game. So they're probably going to score points again. And Adunze does not, like you said, I don't see him slowing down at all. He looks the real deal. He looks like he's actually living up to billing from, he didn't have a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase first year, but it's looking like his second year might actually outclass them and get him up there in that top 10, top 12 at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think another one that surprises me too is Chris Olave. Then you kind of think about it. You're like, okay, well, who else are going to go throw to? Rashid Shaheed is a deep threat. Well, the Saints don't have that kind of time for Spencer Rattler to make decisions of whether he's throwing the ball deep. So it's Jawan Johnson and Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. So it's a lot of short, quick passes. That's where Olave exceeds that. Hence why he is 3 for 3 as well. The guys down below, do you see any of them bouncing back from their 1 for 3 and getting back up into that 70 plus percentage for consistency the rest of the year? The one I have to go with is probably Marvin Harrison, even though I know he had some terrible drops this weekend. It's all they have outside of McBride. I'm kind of looking for a big game out of him tonight because I feel like he knows he made some bad drops last week, and it might be his time to really bring things together. Tonight might be a good night for that against the Seattle defensive backfield.
Oh, yeah. I like him as well. And the one I'm going to go with, though, is even worse down the list. And I think it's one of the bigger disappointments is Brian Thomas Jr. for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I forgot about how far down he is.
He is so far. Yeah, he is 0 for 3.
Yeah, he is 0 for 3. Gosh, I didn't even go that far. You're right. Wow. Yeah.
He
And
has
Ladd McConkey's down there too. Another one.
Yeah, I saw his name too, and it jumped out at me too. But with Thomas Jr., it's like we said, we've seen some news this week that Travis Hunter is not going to get an increase at wide receiver. They've got De'Ami Brown there. They've got a couple of other Parker Washington. It still feels like it should be Brian Thomas Jr. and he's getting peppered with targets, but he has a 28% catch rate this year right now. That's what he's catching. Something's wrong. Something's off. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on. I've heard rumors. I haven't seen him pop up on an injury list, but I heard rumors that there might have been some injuries, like a wrist thing or something. But the talent is too high. It's kind of like a Chase Brown situation.
Mm-hmm.
The talent is there, the volume is there. They're getting a ton of touches. But with Brian Thomas Jr., it's not like he's got a backup quarterback throwing or doing any of that. It's been 3 weeks. He hasn't hit 10 points yet. So I mean, like. And I told you, he's getting a bunch of volume. I think eventually they're going to work that out. Whatever's happening with him has got to clear up because there's no way he's that bad, right? I mean, he was fantastic last year, right?
Right.
So, yeah, he's wide receiver 50 overall right now. So, yeah.
I mean, some of the blame has to go to Trevor Lawrence because, because Brian Thomas was huge the last, 8 games last year with Mac Jones at quarterback? I mean, so how in the world does you bring in the, super stud allegedly, from years back when he was drafted as the number 1 guy? He doesn't play half the season and Brian Thomas goes off and then he comes back. You think, oh, here we go. And they got Travis Hunter on the other side. So that'll take some pressure off the defense, focusing on Thomas. And they both stink.
Yeah, it's
Travis Hunter has less points than Thomas.
If you're Jacksonville, you've got to hate it even worse because you've watched Mac Jones start the last 2 weeks and throw for 270 and 280 yards for the 49ers.
Yeah, with no wide receivers.
Yeah, like what is happening? So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
something's got to click there. It's got to do something. I'm not even sure who the backup is for Jacksonville, the quarterback. I'm not
yeah,
sure who's
they're not
behind
going to
Lawrence,
win.
but
I mean,
like you said, we'll probably never see them because he's the golden arm quarterback, and
right. Well,
he's
they
got
paid him all that money, so yeah, he's probably got at least 3 or 4 years on the contract. So yeah, it's an ugly scene. I
yeah.
mean, the Liam Cohen thing is not working. So either Trevor Lawrence is not as good as we thought, or Liam Cohen is not as good as we thought, and who knows? But Baker Mayfield's still doing well, so we'll go figure.
Yeah.
Uh, all right, let's move on to the tight end position. It's always ugly.
Oh,
And it's, of course, ugly because there's only two perfectly consistent tight ends. Three, if you count Dallas Goedert's 2 for 2 because he missed week 2. And Trey McBride, 3 for 3, fourth in total points. Juwan Johnson is second in total points, 3 for 3. First in total points is Jake Ferguson after his monster week this past week. He's 2 for 3. We've got quite a few 2 for 3s: Hunter Henry, Tucker Kraft, Dalton Kincaid, Zach Ertz, Tyler Warren, Harold Fannin Jr. From Canton, Ohio. Brenton Strange, all at 67%. Everything else goes down from there. Um, right now it's one of those situations where I think it's just easier to stream tight ends. It really is. Draft a Jake Ferguson and a Hunter Henry and just intertwine them. If you use our fantasy consistency tools, my favorite one is the historical consistency, or you can use a forecaster and look at when these guys have good games. Is it at home? Is it on the road? Is it against good defense, bad defense? And just every week go, okay, well, here they are, and so I'll pick this guy and put them in, whether it's, Kyle Pitts, Sam Laporta. People are dropping tight ends left and right trying to figure this out. Now we've got a Rondé Gadsden who wasn't even on the 53 or was like active scratch for the first 2 weeks. And then the tight end in front of them, which I don't remember who it is, got
Will
hurt.
Disley. Will
Yeah,
Disley.
Will Disley. Yeah, that was it. And I loved Gadsden. I heard so many great things about him in camp. I actually
Yeah.
drafted him in a number of leagues and then dropped him because I'm like, gosh, they're not even going to let him even be a backup.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, boom, here he is. He gets his first opportunity. He's a big boy. He's a tall boy. And man, I think I was watching like Red Zone and I saw a pass that Herbert threw. And I don't know how he overthrew Gadsden, but because Gadsden stretched his arm out, he had to be 11 feet high, and
Yeah.
it just missed his fingertips. I was like, oh. Now, granted, I'm not starting Gadsden in anything, but I was just like, oh man, all right. So Herbert
It's
is
another,
looking at him in the end zone, so it's a guy to go pick up.
it's another tight end that you throw into that revolving door that you were just
Yeah,
talking about. That is crazy. Yeah. So
yeah, no,
you,
definitely. And then let's see, the Chargers this week have. Oh, they got the Giants, and the
yeah.
Giants rank 22nd against giving up the most fantasy points to tight end. So just inside the average, but close, So basically, the 13th worst or
Yeah.
11th worst, I should say. 11th worst team against tight ends. The weather, I think, is supposed to cooperate in New York this week. No significant rain, but Giants. This is going to be the Jackson Dart game. Could see maybe you may see a lot of points. Who knows?
This
Um,
this this could, yeah. It actually could profile as an actually good scoring game, so it could be
yeah.
interesting.
So if you can get a Rondé Gadsden and you're struggling at tight end, I don't think it's a terrible idea. Brock Bowers is 1 for 3, even though he's ninth in total points. Mark Andrews is 1 for 3. Kelsey is 1 for 3. Sam Laporta is 1 for 3. Those are the disappointments. Oh, let me throw in TJ Hawkinson in there. Joku is 0 for 3. Dalton Schultz, which nobody would have drafted, is also 0 for 3. Let's see, go way down, see if there's anybody else down here that may be a starter. Well, Colston Loveland. But anyway, not looking good for most of the tight ends. I think streaming's a thing unless you happen to have some of those top guys. But I think the Hunter Henrys, the Dalton Kincaids, Harold Fanning Juniors, if they're not already picked up, don't forget about them. If you've got a deep bench, grab two or three of them and just kind of intermix them. Follow the trends of when they're doing well, home, away, whatever. Any other thoughts on the tight end position that may influence some people listening to this? Because I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like, you just
you
got to
nailed
put
it
out
on
there
the
what
head.
you got.
This is something that you nailed right here that we talked about earlier in the year in another video that you and I were on. And we were looking this up, and I mentioned the flex. Like if you put the order of flex, so running back, tight end, wide receiver all together, as good as Bowers and McBride were last year, they were only like 36th and 38th overall in points.
Mm-hmm.
So people who were reaching for them in the second round, doing all that, you were already reaching. So McBride's the fourth best tight end now, and if you got him, you probably had to third round maybe. Probably you were probably
Probably,
reaching third,
yeah,
fourth round to
yeah.
get him. And like you just said, this point we're seeing that trend happen where last week it was Ferguson and Henry that just blew up and they jumped all the way to the top of the list at the tight end.
Mm-hmm.
This week it might be Gadsden and Brenton Strange blow up, and then
Yeah,
boom, they're going
right.
to be tight end 3 and 4 next week. I mean, like you said, play the matchups, check the consistency reports. The backup, the tight end and your second tight end. If you're playing the two of those together this year and you're doing that, you're probably pissing off the other guys in the league. No offense to that, but the guys who are having to play the who are stuck with Kittle or who drafted somebody high and didn't grab another tight end, they're mad because, like you said, that was a second, third, fourth round pick, and they're getting outscored by Jawan Johnson, who you grabbed in the 14th round. So I mean,
If you grabbed it all.
yeah, you picked him up off waivers after week 1. So like this
Yeah.
is
Another
and
thing to do is keep an eye on the defensive rankings against positions. So like this week, Detroit's 28th against tight ends, so they're really bad. So maybe it's a good Harold Fanning Jr. week, maybe it's an Njoku week. But if you've got one of those two, could be a good time to get them in.
yeah,
Cincinnati's bad against it, and they play when I just looked.
Denver
Denver and that's in Denver. So
and Evan
Adam
Ingram.
Troutman may be a pickup.
Ingram was a full practice participant today.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Well, maybe Ingram. Yeah. So
I was
Ingram
about to
gets
say
back into this.
that's another high drafted tight end that's absolutely done nothing. You know what I mean? Pretty much on the other
Right.
end. So yeah.
Yeah. So those are the things to watch. Keep an eye on that situation too, especially if we're going to do the streaming thing. Use the fantasy consistency tools that we have. It will show you how they've done in those scenarios. So if you see, like a Evan Ingram maybe, and you want to look, you can go into the system and you can pick tight end, type in Ingram. There he is. I know people can't see this, but I'm just doing it. So you got Denver, and now granted, he's only played Denver 3 games or 2 games, so no thing here. But let's go back and look when he was with Jacksonville and how he did in those games. So here we go. At home against a bad defense, perfectly consistent in those games. Could be the time for getting him in play. That's for sure. So use the tools. Yes, you got to pay for them. It's $20 for the whole year, folks. You're not going to get a better deal. You're going to get information and data that you're not going to get anywhere else out in the fantasy world. And that is this important consistency model, showing the trends, showing who's hot, who's not, and getting all of that. So, James, tell everybody where they can find you this week. I know you're always cranking out great stuff, videos, articles, content. So tell everybody what's happening.
Hey, yeah, everybody. You can find me on X at JKeese. Like I said, come on there. Let's talk some football, do some stuff. Articles coming out on Big Guy Fantasy Sports. Come check that out. And like Bob just said, greatest consistency tools in the business, hands down, easy. Use them. And hey, good luck in week 4.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course, you can find me at Bob_Lung on Twitter. And you find me here all week. James and I got our Thursday show. Now, Ron and them, I will not be around this weekend. So the DFS and the prop bets will be Ron and Colby. I will be in Seattle watching Ohio State play Washington on Saturday and then going to the Mariners-Dodgers game on Sunday. So it should be a fun weekend. So everybody have a great weekend. Make sure you stay consistent. Get out there, get those tools, look up that information, help your team be more consistent, win more games, make the playoffs, be a Tiger. For James Keese. James Keese. I never called you that before. That's
Works.
Jay Keese. For James Knight, I'm Bob Log. Take care. God bless. We'll see you soon.